Stop rambling.
Definitely.
Hi, Elias. How's
Hello.
your day going?
It's going good so far. As you mentioned before we hit record here, it's morning for you, but it's early afternoon for me. It's like 2 o'clock. So I've had enough of my day so that I feel like I've gotten some done, but also like more than happy to take a coffee and just chat with you. So very like perfect timing for me, at least.
That's nice. That's nice. And it's Monday, so like you're getting started for the week, and you have like a starting ritual of sorts on Monday, like, okay, this is how I begin my week.
Oh yeah, it's just like look at what I have to do and stress the f out. It's basically my morning routine. It's awful. No, but so I suppose I essentially start every day of looking through my I have a software that's kind of like Notion or
Uh-huh.
Trello even more, but it's for where you can see all your clients that you're working with. So that, it's basically having lots
Mm,
of Trello boards. So I basically look through that and try to prioritize them a bit and see like, okay, how should I start my day here? Um, Maybe start by looking at some messages. I usually start kind of slow, just like getting into things like
yes.
checking Twitter and like usually catching up on some Slack messages from the weekend and stuff. But no, no bulletproof coffee. Here are the 5 steps to my morning routine to take over the world. It's more like, I drag myself to downstairs and just start work. Like I am no role model for like successful mornings. How about yourself? Do you have any?
We have the same morning routine, which is why when you said it, I'm like, this could not get more real. Like, this is
Yes.
exactly so I appreciate that. But before we carry on, um, I am so excited to meet you, Elias. I have heard so much about you, and I think as a marketer, when I first came on Twitter, I think I heard about you from 3 or 4 different people. They're like, "Oh my God, you're a marketer! Like, you should definitely like follow Elias, like see his content, talk to him. You know, his story is so exciting." And I was like, "Oh, that's great." And so when I followed you for the first 2 3 days, I'm like, okay, should I DM? Should I not DM? And I had these questions, and I was like, it's okay. I'll just look at the content. And then at one fine day, I'm like, it's okay. I'll just message. The worst
Yeah.
that could happen is I wouldn't get a response. But the next morning, I woke up and like there were so many, like you had such detailed answers. I'm like, oh my God, this person sat down and like spoke to me and really helped me out. And that's when I was like, that was the first time I was surprised. And then I was like, oh my God, so thoughtful. And then I met you for the second time. And then I was like, this is just who he is. Like he's very intentional. And when he talks to people, he gives them their 100%. So a podcaster today, having you on, I'm very excited because the energy you bring is just amazing.
That's so nice to hear. I mean, more than I'm very happy that I give off nice energy. That's always nice to hear. But I think what's even nicer, I think, is to recognize that I had the same experience so many times when I got started. So I mean, you
Mm,
got into the Twitter community when we talked last time. You mentioned it was like kind of during summer, right? Like June or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Very, very, very like recent.
yeah, yeah. So like, you also had Alex on, and I watched your entire episode now finally, and it was so good. I loved it so much. You
Correct.
know, even people you think like pretty good, you always like learn something new about them, and when they talk for like an hour, and like maybe go a bit deeper into areas where you just daily talk about random stuff.
Yeah.
But something she said, Alex said, which really stuck with me was like when with Twitter, she got super
Mm,
close with like Dan and Sandra from Morning Maker Show and a
yes.
few others, of course. But
Yes.
like, people that they got started at the same time, and there were people ahead of them that they learned from.
Yeah.
And she started almost exactly like 1 year before me. And so I felt that she was one of these people. And I had several people 1 year ahead of me, almost like in school, where you're like,
Yeah.
oh, you look at them so much and they're so good. And then they come and help you. And so I'm just absolutely so stoked if I can be anything close to that for you and a few others that are like,
Oh,
started just about a year after us, because
yeah.
it feels like that is the way that the community just keeps on working. So that's
Giving.
so.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I agree. Like I think a lot of people like that were where I am a year ago, like
mm,
you and Shake,
yeah,
like when you talk to someone who's been in the shoes, you guys understand because they're like,
mm,
oh no, no, it's okay. Like for example, hitting a content slump, maybe,
yeah.
right? Like it's going to happen. It's inevitable. But it
Oh,
feels so bad when that happens. I'm like, oh my God, I can't, right? Do I not know anything? Can I not write about anything? Like, why is this happening? And so then when that happens, I
mm,
just go back to your, content or your feed, and then I was like, oh, talk about it too. They experienced
mm,
it too. And
mm,
and when I was talking to Alex, she's like, on the outside, I had such great, like 1 million ARR business, but I was feeling really terrible and I was having, bad days. And then I was like, oh, this is very real. And
mm,
I'm so glad that we could talk about it because
mm,
there
mm,
is this, perfection syndrome, as I call it on social media, where everything's great, everything's perfect, and everything is rosy. And then when you talk about behind the scenes, you're like, no, no, it's just as real as
yeah,
your experience is. So that really helps newcomers from not giving up. Because
yeah,
if I thought I was the only one going through that, I would be like, oh, maybe something's wrong with me, and I would have just given up. So it's
yeah.
really helpful.
100%. And it's something that I found is also very hard about this is that it's without a doubt the case that like showing off your success really helps you grow and stuff, and so you have super clear incentives to do that. But then
Mhm.
again, when you share stuff that's not going well, it can feel like you're kind of whining or just like looking support. But oh please,
Validation.
it's so sad for me. Yeah, like and so it's both of like, oh, who are you to say that stuff is going bad? Like you're now making some money, you're now pretty successful, and so I had this aversion to both, like sharing what's going really good because then you're bragging, and sharing what's really bad because then you're whining.
Yeah.
But so it's kind of hard. But so I think, well, that's also one of the lessons that I've definitely learned about this community is that so much happens in the DMs. Like what
Yes.
people share publicly, that can be either way. You have no idea how people are feeling or thinking about sharing success and stuff because they might hate it. So many people I know that are insanely successful hate it, but it works. So they do
Yeah.
it. And it's like, yeah, what are we going to do? It's like, I suppose it's like dancing on TikTok. What are you going to do? If you're here, you're going to dance because it works. Like it just is what it is. So that's kind of tough. But as soon as you start DMing people, and that's where I feel like it's really more of a community. Like I've never used this term before. Like I don't. LinkedIn is, I suppose, is a community, but like I've never used the term
Yeah.
community before because it's just been public feeds. And but what makes it feel like a community is like, you connect with people in the DMs, and you don't really think about growing followers as much, but more like, helping a few people out consistently, and the same people support you all the time, and you
Yeah.
do the same for them.
Yeah.
So but so much happens in the DMs. It's crazy, like
Yeah.
sharing failure when people are not good actors in the community.
Mm,
People call it out, not publicly, but in the DMs. They're just like, this guy just screwed that guy over. And then everybody's like,
yeah.
okay, private blacklist. Like, I will never work with that person who does something
Yeah.
that bad and stuff. So
Yeah.
lots of stuff going on behind the scenes. It's
Behind the
very,
scenes.
very
Yeah.
interesting. You can't
Yeah.
know it just by looking publicly about, oh, he shares just takes to set, oh, just MRR screenshot. Maybe he hates it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about that too. Like a lot of like fake MRR, ARR posts going around and how it
Yeah.
makes everyone feel. Just yesterday I saw someone saying, oh, is that a good move or a bad move? And
Mm,
I was thinking about it, and my first reaction was to say, oh, fake MRR posts are bad. And then
Mhm.
I thought, I'm like, is it onto the poster or is it onto the person who's reading the post? Like, because
Yeah.
if I read it and I'm like, I don't care. I don't
Yeah.
care you're making $20,000 a month or 50,000.
Yeah.
Sure, it's a nice goal to have, but I'm not
Mm.
going to compare myself to you. Then it doesn't impact me as a
Mhm.
reader, right?
Yeah.
So, but I like with all that going on, it does feel braggy sometimes, and it also feels like okay, not everyone needs to know about that. Like,
Yeah.
why? Like, what purpose does it serve, right? So I'm a little like undecided on that, but
Yeah.
I go off on a tangent. Something I really liked what he said is you don't, you don't, care about followers as much than genuine connections. That is so true because here's a secret I haven't told anyone on the Twitter community. I used to
Oh,
be on TikTok
oh
like a
no.
decade ago.
No.
And because I am a professionally trained dancer, so I was on TikTok and I had like 40,000 followers on there, right?
No.
Yeah.
She don't.
But I didn't have friends. I had
Mm.
like just people who would like comment, like, oh my God, this is great. No one really called me out and said, yeah, this was all right. This is
Yeah.
not that. Like,
Yeah.
so it was a very lonely journey. Before TikTok, I was on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
No, no, after TikTok, I was
I
on
was just gonna
LinkedIn.
say you were on LinkedIn and then TikTok. Damn.
No, no, no. It's the other way around. So in like last year and something over there too, I felt like I was putting on a show,
Yeah. Yeah.
more than not to
Mhm.
call the platform out. Maybe I was not using the platform right. Maybe it's on me, but that's how I felt. But here, when I started posting and then
Yeah.
I started making friends, then I was like, oh, I'm not posting. I am
Yeah.
just telling a group of friends who are across the globe
Yeah.
something that happened in my day, and now I can be as real as I want about it
Yeah.
or as guarded as I want about it, and then continue the conversations in the DM. So that switch
Mm.
really helped with
Mm.
content creation and being more authentic and just talking about stuff rather than curating it.
100%. I don't know what it is with platforms. It's so interesting where nothing stops you from acting this way on LinkedIn, but you just don't. It's like so. I don't think it's up. I don't think it's on you at all. I think that anyone who has ever used LinkedIn have the same like. This is no
Yeah,
no no. This is not my thing.
yeah,
It's incredibly valuable. One probably should do it. It's again. It's like MRR. LinkedIn is the MRR screenshots of platforms. It's like you should do it because it works. But all of it leaves such a bad taste in your mouth every time. So
yeah,
it's really interesting. I never felt that I could be as much of myself as on Twitter. Yeah, I
yeah,
have no idea why. I can't objectively pinpoint why. Like even on Facebook, I would never. I think the closest thing for me is like there are no previous connections here. It's like moving to a new city
yeah,
and you can
yeah.
just be yourself and no one that I really care about will find me. Of like,
Correct.
a schoolmate that had, weird vibes between us or something. Like if I started sharing MRR screenshots from with my like old school friends, they would be like, what are you
Yeah,
doing?
yeah.
This is the, cardinal sin for Swedes
Correct.
to but and like I would just never do it. But very freeing to be here for some reason. I don't know. It's very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I think you really like nailed it when you said there are no pre-existing relatimes. On
Mm.
LinkedIn, you have your colleagues, your ex-colleagues, your managers, your
Mm.
ex-managers, and all direct reports and all of that. And not that them being there is a bad thing, it's an amazing thing. It's
Yeah.
just that you have like when I started my work, I was 2021, so like my personality was very different, and now they still are on the same account. So if when I'm trying to be myself now, I've
Mm.
evolved over the course of those years, and now I'm like, oh my God, I'm just
Yeah.
they're not used to seeing me like this, and but
Mm.
the pre-existing audience really does
Yeah.
put barriers on how you can act and show up
Yeah.
authentically. That's 100% true. That was gold over there. I agree. So, what is that? What brought you to Twitter? Like, what brought you on? And did you always have a plan that you're going to run your own growth agency, or was that something that came up organically?
Yeah. It was a, yeah, I suppose a mix. So,
Yeah,
um, I've been on Twitter since forever. I think my account is from like 2011 or 13 or something. But I
Wow.
was on Twitter even previously. It was just like when I created this account. So like I've always been here,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
much like almost always been a lurker. So when I was like 19 or so, I did some YouTube videos as well. So kind of like a TikTok face.
Nice.
And so this was like in 2011-ish. So like pretty like in those terms early. Um, and that was super fun. I really loved it. But
Mhm.
then just like did some weird stuff then, and so yeah, then just did the regular route. That then for the last 6 years or so, I've been running a startup as a tech co-founder, and then I was so focused on the startup, so every moment I had like left over, I always felt that, well, if I could do a side project or do like street or whatever, I'll just put that back into the work instead. Why would I ever do anything except for this super
Mhm.
narrow and focus
Yeah,
of just the startup?
yeah.
Then the startup didn't go as well as we'd hoped, and then it reveals to you that, oh, there are
Other
benefit to talking to people for 6 years when you
Yeah,
are doing something. Because if it doesn't go the way you want, then you're not left with that much. So extremely thankfully, I'm at least still very close friends with my co-founder. So we didn't like ruin our relationship. But otherwise, I kind of was just in my cage, just working.
right.
Um, but so I think that's realizing now that we're kind of in the process of moving on from that, both my co-founder and I, in different ways. And so I I had this insane need to start building stuff because I had 6 years. I had like a document
Yeah.
in my notion of like ideas that are better than our current business. I was like, and there are hundreds of ideas here, and
Wow.
it's so stupid. But what was really interesting, and then I started to kind of try. I saw the indie hacker community. I'd known about them for years, but
Hmm.
then I don't know. I just got into it. I think I started by giving feedback. I think I was on Reddit. So on Reddit there are these things called Feedback Fridays. That
Hmm.
are like so every week, they were like, oh, post your startup, and you can give feedback, and there are a bunch of different like on Twitter, of course, people like, looking for some feedback or whatever. So I started recording videos like that of just
Hmm.
giving feedback. And it was so fun because people seemed to really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I should start building stuff. So then I started
Mhm.
launching and so on. And then like we got this point with our startup that we're like, okay, we're gonna stop working on this. So the last paycheck is coming. And then
Mhm.
I was, okay, I'm not going to be able to support my wife and son like on just
Yeah.
indie projects. I need
Yeah.
to make a salary, otherwise I'll have to take a job.
Yeah.
And then I saw this guy in the community, Dan Kulkov. He's not
Mm.
quite active right now, as he kind of was when I joined. I think he maybe post a few times a week. But he had this post where it's like, here's a list of like how like different ways of building a startup from the hardest to the easiest, from the easiest to the hardest, of like
Mhm.
do an agency, build like a digital product, directory, this, and then finally SaaS. And he's like, why does every indie hacker start on level 7? It's
Yeah.
the hardest thing you can do. And I was like, holy shit, because I had just lived and breathed SaaS, and we took like venture capital and stuff, so that was a different thing. But now, when we didn't have to pay our salaries and stuff, then
Yeah.
it's like you have to make money immediately, and few people
Yeah.
can. It's so hard,
Yeah.
especially when you have no following, no experience, like good experience marketing. So then I
Yeah.
was like, let me follow that advice. Let me start on the easier side. So I
Right.
started with the agency model. And
Yeah.
what was interesting there as well was that even though I'm technical, and so I love anything technical, but what we realized was that um, when we were working was that companies, like everyone is struggling, everyone with sales and marketing. Tech is surprisingly commoditized in the last
Yeah.
few years. It's
Yeah.
incredible. It feels so strange
Yeah.
because 5, 10 years ago, it wasn't like this at all.
Yes.
Um, then it was like technical co-founder was the number one, that was the hardest thing to get.
To do.
But now
Yeah,
to
and
get
get.
something off the ground is relatively easy, and
Mm-hmm.
it's relatively hard as a technical person to beat other technical people. But as a
Mm-hmm.
technical person to go into sales and marketing, then you have your like a very specific way of looking at the world, which they might not have. So
Mm-hmm.
then it's easier to beat them at certain things. They will kick your ass in so many things. And similarly, as a marketer coming and I think it's exactly the same when you take people like Mark Lu, like a lot of the best indie hackers, they
Mm-hmm.
are technical, but number one, they're incredible marketers. So they're just like,
Right.
I am 80 to 90% a marketer, but I know just enough tech to be dangerous. And they kill it,
Yeah.
compared to
Yeah.
insanely technical people that don't know anything about marketing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so like taking your own knowledge and applying it to the other side of things can be
Right.
super useful. So that's kind
Yeah.
of what I decided to do. Agency,
Mm-hmm.
let me apply technical knowledge to growth.
Right.
Essentially. Mm.
That makes sense. That's an incredible story. I have so many questions from there. I'm like, which one do
Go.
I pick, right? So,
No, you have to stop me. Good Lord.
no, 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 no. I love this. I love that you're,
Yeah.
really sharing your journey here. But what I was getting to is now that you have the agency,
Yeah.
um, do you plan on like graduating to the next step and then like step 2, step 3, and then go to step 7? Or are you like, this, I'm learning so much here, like let me stay here for the next few years or foreseeable future? What's your mind frame at? Do you intend to go graduate to the next steps?
Yeah, it's been super interesting, and it's like it you realize that at every case, at every stage, no matter who you're talking to, everybody thinks that the grass is greener on the other
On the
side.
other side.
So now I've had the fortune of getting to know some just spectacularly successful people in the community,
Yeah.
and they're always thinking about what's the next step? How do I make things even better? But
Yeah.
for the rest of us, when we're looking at them, we're like, aren't you satisfied? Aren't you like here now? Or haven't you made it? And they're like, oh man, it's crazy out there. 80% of our, or like 20% of our customers are like doing 80% of our problems. So we need to figure out like, how do we find more of our best customers and stuff.
Right.
And you know what I realized was that so my inspiration for when I started my own agency or consultancy, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter to me.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I saw players like Alex and Nick who run Big Design, and I was like, oh, this subscription model, like a flat fee for your services, is such a cool idea. And they do it
Hmm.
for design, so let me try. And I was so surprised. I didn't see many doing that for marketing. Maybe a few for SEO, but almost, and maybe a few for cold emailing, but almost nothing else.
Yeah.
So it was like, let me just instead of design, let me take it and say growth. And since growth can
Right.
be, sales, marketing, even like product,
Hmm.
retention, growth is a very big area.
Yeah.
Uh, and so that was a very good pitch to start getting clients because it's a wide area. But it also is very tough to then deliver on because for one customer, they might be like, oh, we need we need help with SEO. And I'm like, oh man, I know some great SEO people. You should talk to these people. Like these, wow, they're the best, right? How about ads? Yo, I know the best people. You should talk to these people. Holy shit. It's like all the time. I'm just pointing to other people that
Yeah.
are better than me. And so it was like number one, hard to be like to honestly be the best at this whole thing because you can
Yeah.
always look at other stuff and like, oh, these people are way better than I am.
Hmm.
And even though like even if you do a good job, which I hopefully do, it's still the problem that you're a part of like 6 different group projects per day, because it's not
Yes.
productized. So even though you enjoy it, even though you do a good job, it's still stressful as holy. Like it's so
Mm,
like so much context switching. And so where I'm at right now, of this question of like graduating, I'm also at the stage where I'm like, okay, I need to figure out like one thing to focus on, so that
mm,
I'm more like, oh, I'm an SEO person or a cold email person. Like, what's my thing?
yeah.
And then find even a target customer for that. So maybe not just oh, I'll help any type of startup, but so for instance, if you're running a design agency, maybe you want to be a design like an NFT designer for Web3
Yeah.
startups, because
Yeah.
market is probably big enough for you to have an
Right.
amazing life,
Yeah. That's
or
true.
whatever, or
Yeah.
cold email for design agencies. Totally
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of the number one thing that I'm more like pivoting rather than yet
Mm,
graduating, because I
got it.
haven't really found that. Well, for instance, talking to Alex, I think that they are designers. They really like
Mm,
enjoy that. And of course, there are many ways of looking at that. So maybe they're interested in maybe, oh, would love to do some more like on the UX side, but it's still
mm,
design. Like I'm sure that for SEO agencies, they're like, oh, we should do a bit more technical SEO or a bit more on page or a bit more backlinks. Like, of course,
right.
everybody gives it a bit, but
Yeah.
for me, it's more like, this is, I need to go from just knowing everybody is better than me at their particular thing to being the person
Right.
that gets called in from them. Like, oh,
Yeah.
you need help with that?
Yeah.
Elias is the guy,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That makes sense.
I'm not there with graduating yet, unfortunately. I'm still in school.
That makes sense. No, but I think you touched on so many great points there. Number one is it is a little harder to productize like growth um services because it's not just industry specific, it
Yeah.
is client
Yeah.
specific, right?
Mm.
Because you're dealing with every company, you're dealing with different geographical location, different
Mhm.
messaging, different audience, different time. Like, even if I were to work for, let's say, Href, and then I move to SEM Rush, they're in the
Yeah.
same industry and
Yeah.
they're competitors.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't know, can I do the same campaign that I did with Href a year ago? I don't know because it was a year ago. I don't know
Yeah.
what the average ad costs are. I don't know, where they are in the buying cycle because every month you have a different like buying behavior.
Yeah.
Sometimes June, July is dead, and then September, October is taking off. So you can't lift and shift any
Yeah.
component of marketing. So
Cool.
it has to be so customized
Yeah.
for each client that
Yeah.
finding that productized version of it is much harder than I would say in any other field. I
Yeah.
think because if maybe a designer were to come in, they would be like, no, it's
Mm-mm.
the same for design. Design also needs customer specific design. But as a
Mm-mm.
marketer, I feel like you can't lift and shift stuff in marketing. That's not going to work. You can have templates, but you never know how those templates are going to work.
No, 100%. And I mean, it's always. I think it is. It's probably it is super. All I can say is that it's super hard in marketing and sales, and there are so many other factors, not only the market, but also like what type of buy-in will you get from the team you're working with.
Yeah.
Maybe you're like, yeah, I think we should do X,
Yeah.
and they're definitely not. And then I'm like, oh shit, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like so it's also this thing that's also very new to me. I've never been employed at a tech company or any like that sort of like company working with sales and marketing in any such capacity. So for me,
Yeah.
it's also very new to. I've been a founder for many years. Just like if I have an idea, I can just go do it. But here's
Mm,
like, you need buy-in, you need to understand what they want. You
yeah.
can do your best, but then it's
Mhm.
still like, if it goes great, it's not all because of you. It's if it goes bad, it's like, yeah, you sometimes you felt that you wanted to do something else, but it's like, yeah, it is what it is, which is
Yeah.
like the experience of 99% of people that take employment. So it's more like an education for me to maybe not take like full ownership of mostly when things go bad, you're like, oh, this is all my fault. but
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you
I
usually
agree.
try your best. And yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And
but
it's
yeah.
also marketing attribution is one of the
Yeah.
toughest things to
Oh, yeah,
do.
yeah. Yeah,
You don't
totally.
know what worked and why you got that great
Yeah.
CTR or
Yeah.
why you got that terrible bounce rate. Like you don't know. Like you need to figure it out on your own. And the best thing you can do is guesstimates. You can't
Yeah.
pinpoint and say this was the reason. So I
Yeah.
totally get that. When you were talking about your experience running a company as a tech founder and then
Yeah.
moving in as like a growth partner, it was like a VC backed world, SaaS world, which is very different.
Mhm.
And this is the indie hacking world. And I know you also work with, if I'm not wrong, Romain, who's running Whisper It,
Yes. Yes. Of course. Yeah.
correct?
Mhm.
So that's
Mhm.
more of like a B2B,
Yeah.
side of things.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing he's VC backed. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Not
Um,
coming to my
no?
knowledge. No.
Okay, that's
No.
awesome. But
Yeah.
like, do you notice stark differences between the VC backed world and the indie hacking world? For one example, indie hackers building products for indie hackers is amazing, but
Yeah.
selling them to them is
Yeah.
terrible because A, they don't have like they're very strapped for cash. And if
Yeah.
they feel like it's very pricey, they'll just go build their own. So it's
Exactly.
not like, you can market
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
a product. Are there any more differences that you're seeing between the two worlds now that you've spent
Mm.
considerable amount of time in both?
Oh, yeah. This is one of the most interesting topics that I can think of. Like what these different areas can learn from each other, right? So there is
Yeah.
also this ongoing war, and I feel like I'm a child of both. So I'm like,
Oh,
Mom and Dad, please chill. Like, I'm just like, what is happening? Like, to me, there is no better or worse in that sense of like
yeah,
calling the other side idiots for doing X, Y, Z. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't get that at all.
yeah,
Um, I mean, you can of course make fun of both like both sides of things, and it doesn't have to be that hard. But some people are like going hard,
yeah,
and that I think is weird.
yeah,
But so a few things. In many ways, I would say that they. I mean, if you look at, it's been an interesting shift where I think that a lot more of the VC funded world is learning from has to learn from the bootstrapped side of
yeah.
things,
Mm-hmm.
because capital is nowhere close to as abundant as it was like in 2021, like, or
Correct.
whether the absolute peak was maybe like early 2022 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like we all know that we have to focus way more on profitability. How do you do
Yeah,
that? Well, 95% of your costs come from your team, so you need to keep the team small, and you need to build and ship fast and validate stuff. So I think in many ways the VC-backed world is actually, becoming more like the bootstrapped world.
right.
Lots and lots of, if you look at some fantastic startups coming out of YC and other places, they
Yeah,
they might even start as essentially indie hackers, or literally indie hackers from the
yeah,
community, and they act way more like it in general. That
yeah,
I think it's even, but these have been truisms from YC for a long time. Where it's like the best startups are very slow to hire. Like they try to stay small. When you're new to startups, you want to
yeah.
brag about how many people you have, but when you're more experienced, you brag about how few you are. Of
Correct.
like
Yeah,
how much work can you get done with very
yeah,
few people. That's super impressive.
yeah.
Uh, so that's one thing. I think that if there's one challenge there, a lot of the success and the value of YC and other accelerators and investments,
Mm-hmm.
or is of course that you get access to a network that you can sell to. So like a lot of YC startups sell to other YC startups, and this is like not weird.
Yeah,
It's not in any way. It's like
yeah,
it's how exchanging goods and services is what it's all about.
yeah.
But having a clear in with people that have like new capital and stuff, it can be a really good idea. And as they grow, you expand your how much you charge them, and they become better. social proof that, oh, we had Airbnb as a customer and stuff. And
Uh,
so like, it makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
But for indie hackers, exactly as you say, it's
Mm,
way more difficult
mm,
because there is, of course, like I think some people, I think I've been talking with like Sandra and Dan, and they can get kind of annoyed when people say that indie hackers are poor. Because in one way, indie hackers can be relatively wealthy spenders because they
mm,
usually have a day job. They're usually super technical and they might be doing something on the side. So they might have a lot of money in one way of like, if you look at the general population, but it's
yeah.
still more of a consumer mindset. Plus, exactly as you said, they are always evaluating as like, can I do this myself?
Yes.
Uh, and that is a huge issue because when you're saying stuff that everything gets through the lens of like, I can see the matrix of the GPT wrappers you've created. I could do this in seconds. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
but show it to someone else, it's magic, and they
Yeah.
could they just can't do it, or they just would never do it.
Yeah.
So that is definitely another thing that I think, and that it makes sense that it's
Mhm.
like this, where it's like you you are almost always better at both understanding problems and selling when you sell to yourself. So if you're an indie hacker, you can build stuff for indie hackers, and you know what
Yes.
the troubles are. If you're a startup founder, you can sell to other startup founders. But the best ones I've seen are exactly like Romain or Romain, that
Mhm.
he learns from the indie hacker community, but
Mhm.
he goes outside of the network and sells to law firms.
Yes.
And like what he's able to do there is
Yeah.
just like, it's absolutely incredible to see because
Yeah.
they have, it's again, a technical person applying his knowledge in an area
Mm,
that don't have a lot of technical people. So if you're a
yeah.
growth person in the startup world or indie hacker community, people
Yeah.
love you because that's what they don't want to do. That like they hate it.
Yeah.
So there's also this very interesting little segment that, like, if there's something I've noticed is that if you want to sell one thing to indie hackers that they're willing to spend bank on, it's SEO because they will
Mm,
do anything to avoid talking to their users.
yeah. Yes.
But they know they need to do marketing.
Yeah.
So, and what is the answer? It's SEO. So like, oh, I'm spending this money on backlinks and improving my, they will do anything because, oh, I'm spending this, I'm doing marketing, but they don't have to like, necessarily set up ads because, it doesn't have as good a reputation. But they all want to set up these machines so that they don't have to do anything and money just comes in. And the
Comes in.
answer is just SEO.
Yeah.
Uh, but otherwise, like when you go into B2B, you have to hustle and you have to
Yeah.
sell. And you know this better than anyone, I'm sure.
It's a
Like so,
different world. It's a
yeah,
very different world.
yeah. But I think that so many engineers are probably way better salespeople than they think, because
Yes.
sales is so much about just helping people figure out solutions to problems and being very helpful and
Yeah.
figuring out what is your problem. I don't get it. I don't get it. And then finally, this is your problem? I can solve it very simply
Yeah.
this way. Like,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
engineers are actually really good salespeople, but they think you need to be slick and some type of, someone from Mad
Smooth.
Men, you know,
Yes.
that's not
Yeah.
it at all. You need to just figure out the
Agree.
problems and then build a solution for them and help them along the way. And if they have questions, you help them.
I love that point because that reminds me my first like manager in sales had said something that stuck with me. Every
Yeah.
time someone comes on a discovery call with
Yeah.
you,
Mm.
they should walk away feeling like they have just had a therapy session.
Oh, that's lovely. Nice.
Like because they're able to unburden themselves, because usually when people are stuck with these problems, they can't talk to their colleagues or their direct like managers about it because they're not living their day-to-day life, right?
Um,
And here's a person who comes in and says, tell me about your problems, like what's your day look like, and they just want to like unleash. And then if you listen, they'll just tell you, which is why they say after asking a question, or if the person has answered, wait. stay silent. It's going to be awkward for the first couple times, but stay silent. Then you'll see people, in order to fill that silence, they're feeling awkward too. So they'll keep talking and they'll give you information that
Nice.
you never knew that would come to light. And that's just stuck with me. And I'm like, yeah, you just have to ask them questions and let them talk. Just let them talk. And that's a gold mine right there.
I got goosebumps. It's the best definition I've ever heard. And it's also hilarious because my mom is a therapist. So, so it's,
Wow.
but it's so like imagine people's perception of what a salesperson is, what you should do on a demo call. Oh, you should
Yes.
pitch, you should be slick, you should know everything. No, you should be a
Yeah.
therapist. It's literally the opposite of just like,
Correct.
I'm not here to talk, you talk, you know.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and also it's such a good thing also that it's therapy in the sense of like it's not at all only about the functional side of fixing things, but also the emotional side. They're
Correct.
stressed out, so they're depressed
Yes.
and all these
Yes.
issues. And they might lose their job, and like the company's going down. Oh shit, how are we gonna solve this? And then you are the
Yes.
like, I'm gonna do my best to help you out here, and here's thinking, we're gonna do
Yes.
this together.
Agreed.
It's
Yes.
that's not, madman. That is a therapist. Exactly right.
Exactly. That's right on the money. And I feel like when you do that, you also establish a strong relationship, and that's what you want,
Yeah.
right? And that's
Mhm.
that's what's going to take you so far, as far as you want to go, which is great. Awesome. Okay, changing gears. I You were talking about, someone taking the learnings from the indie hacking community and going to law firms. And you also talked about you coming in as a technical co-founder and then, going into growth. And
Mhm.
so basically someone who's stepping out of their domain and using transferable skills or transferable knowledge. Um, what were the challenges that you faced when you were doing that? And did you also see that with Roman when he's building it?
Mm.
Or is it again very specific to your situation alone? Is it individual to every person?
It's a fantastic question. I think that one thing can definitely be a type of imposter syndrome and lack of credibility. So both towards yourself and towards people. So if I were to say, come to me because I'm a TikTok expert, like that might be a real problem, whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I'm not a TikToker. But if you come there like, yeah, I had 40,000 followers, da 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 da, da,
Mm-hmm.
you kill me immediately. So
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely one challenge with switching domains, that it can be very difficult to feel like you belong and stuff. While other people, even for me, like other people might have been working in marketing for 10 years at my
Mm-hmm.
age. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, so in one, and but as long as you feel like you have your angle to it, of like, why would it make sense for somebody to say no to somebody who's been in marketing in 10 years? Well, perhaps if there is a technical angle to this marketing problem, then I will probably hold my own. Um, but it's also very interesting that almost always there appears to be, it might not be in your domain, but you have some type of previous interaction with this customer segment. So to my understanding, it didn't come completely out of the blue with Romain, with selling to law firms. I think that he had some connection with law firms or something, so that he like, if you just imagine me standing in front of a law firm and like a law firm partner and trying to pitch, I
Mm-hmm.
would suck. Like I probably wouldn't vibe with them at all. Like I don't dress up, I don't do this, I don't do that, I
Yeah.
don't hear shit.
Yeah.
Um, but when I had calls with him, he's sometimes in a suit, and this is a technical, like previous skateboarder guy. Like so, but he in so many ways we are similar, but he can
Yeah.
play the part, and he does know them, and on some level that I just don't.
Mm.
And I think similarly for me, for me it was obvious because I had like my co-founder is the best salesperson I've ever met in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and I've learned so much from him, seeing him, and I've tried this stuff myself. So the obvious place for me to start was like, oh, I'll help start because I know exactly how it works inside of startups, in how what you
Yep.
need to get done, what is most important. I wouldn't go to a startup and say, hey, let's start with SEO day one, because
Mm.
it's the wrong answer. It just is.
Yeah,
Because that
yeah,
will take months to work.
yeah,
Um, so we need quicker results and stuff. So and if I came to a law firm, it's like, oh, you need to do this, and they're like, what are you talking about? That's not it at all. You want to avoid that. So you can either get in there, learn. I know that again, speaking of some founders from like some YC stories, I tend to reference them because they share so much.
yeah.
So that's easy to come back to. But I know some founders there, like they take a job in an area, and I think this was also what made me so impressed when talking to you, where I'm like, this is a very cool person, because you were like, I have this idea in this area.
Yeah,
I might get a job there, I might consult there, but I need to get in there. And I'm like,
yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
even you don't have that like red thread yet, you're creating it.
yeah.
And once you're inside, it's a completely different story. So
Yes.
these are the challenges, but the solution is to look at, do I have any
Mm.
credibility, even if I haven't been there myself? Do I have family, friends, anything in there?
Yeah,
And can I
yeah,
get in there?
yeah.
That's usually the way. So almost never is it like me with law firms. I have zero connection with law firms. That's very
Yeah,
unlikely to work unless I'm
yeah,
willing to do the work of getting in there, which I'm
yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. That was a great answer. And I also liked the part where you touched on imposter syndrome because a lot of them feel it. And I
Yeah.
think you continue to feel it every day and you just show up and get
Yeah.
2% better than the previous day or 1%
Mhm.
better. That's the
Yeah.
only way to go about it.
Yeah.
And it can feel scary. And I think it continues to feel scary until one day you look back and you're like, oh my God, I've learned so much. Like I know so much more about an area than I did before. So
Yeah.
that's a beautiful answer. I do have so many other questions, but I know that we're like also coming close to the hour. So I'm going to be mindful of that. And I'm going to close with what was the one blunder and one breakthrough you had this week? And then I
Mm.
have one more question, but I'll leave
Mhm.
that to the end.
Yeah. And no stress on my account, but I was thinking about this question being since it's the name of the show, I suppose. And I was like, can't really point at any like blunder there, or rather, there are too many blunders every week. But like, what do I continuously blunder on? Like, it's like I like the term because it's like in chess, right? When you make an insanely bad move, that's like a
Yeah,
blunder. And
yeah.
like, which blunder move do I keep making every day, week? And my biggest blunder is truly like my own health. Like I just prioritize it so low
Yeah,
every like I just I it's so stupid. And I know it's so stupid, but
yeah,
it doesn't require that much, even taking a 30-minute walk, even doing
yeah,
workout, whatever, stuff that I really enjoy doing. But when there is work to be done, I skip it all the
yeah,
time. I am
yeah.
so bad at disconnecting. The
Same,
worst, really.
same.
So that is my number one blunder that I keep making. I just there way too much. It's so stupid, but I
It's the
keep doing
same.
it. Yeah.
It's the same.
Closest thing to breakthrough for me is probably to that I've kept looking for like more of a focus both in what I do that I can get better at and just like do more stuff of the same every day. So it really compounds. You really do get better at something really fast. And then finding, might there be a better customer segment than who I'm currently targeting for this offer? That I've been doing for the last few weeks and gotten some really interesting stuff going. That I've been okay. So for instance, targeting bigger companies and like do more of a certain part of growth for them.
Mhm,
And well, if this would work out, wow, that could be so interesting. And so even though it's
mhm,
outside of my comfort zone, never worked in bigger companies, never worked with them either, but
mhm,
no, now that you build some confidence and stuff, and you're not you have enough to eat, you have enough to feed your family, then you can always start experimenting. So I think if I look back on this conversation a few months from now, I think it will be this thing of like continuing to iterate and not just say that, oh, I'm a growth partner for startups. That's what I am. That's what I'm gonna do. But keep looking for, keep going up that ladder, and then maybe one day actually graduating to doing more things. Who knows? But that will be the goal for sure.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure you're gonna do more than graduate. The honors. You or graduate with honors, and
No,
then
no,
go.
no. You then. American systems are not the same from us, but is it like, 1.5 GPA, like, barely may C minus, like the,
Oh, I definitely think you'll do with the honors.
yeah.
Honors. I love the compounding effect that you talked about. There's also a book called The Compounding Effect. It's
Oh,
a
really?
it's a beautiful read. It's on that topic. It's exactly
Oh,
on that topic.
that's awesome.
Yeah. And one last question before you go. What's next for you, and what are you excited about?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I think that like what's next is hopefully this. If there's one thing that's a little bit sad about targeting bigger companies, like it doesn't really make as much sense for me to be as active on Twitter on the business side of things. Like before, it was kind of cool. Like if I kept being active, it led to business results and stuff. Now it's a bit more separated, but I am always excited to chat, meet more great people, and I feel like I want to be like Romao. It's like doesn't necessarily like he isn't finding lawyers here, but he's finding
Yeah.
friends here. So
Yeah.
and I feel very much the same. So I'm very excited to just keep making friends, having a good time, and coming back to learn from others. Hopefully, share something of that's useful to someone out there as well every now and again, and yeah, just chatting more like with fantastic people
Yeah.
like yourself.
That's amazing. And I love that point because you're right. Twitter makes sense for a specific, group of people that you're trying to connect with. But then as soon as that changes because of your business goals, it doesn't really make sense. But you don't want to leave the cozy, warm feeling that you get when you
Yeah,
enter this community. And you're
yeah,
like, can I replicate this somewhere else? And it's so hard to replicate. It is very difficult. So,
yeah.
but having
Mm.
said that, that was amazing. Thank you so much for jumping on today. It was such a pleasure. And this was one of those free flowing conversations where I just feel like I haven't had enough time. I have so many more questions, that I need to get through, but I'm like, time's up and I want to be mindful of everyone's time. So I would love to have you back
Oh, I'm
for another one and continue this conversation because I know that we'll have more to talk about. I already have a list of questions. I'm like
saying.
stopping myself. I'm like I don't want to go over. But thank you so much, and I hope you have a great week.
Saying thank you so much. Absolute pleasure. Would love to be back again. Would love to. I think any viewer is really missing out on our first conversation, which was more about you because I was asking you for help. So thankfully, as a proxy of that, we talked a bit more about you, which was just fantastic. So I think that we need to somehow flip this script so that we talk about your knowledge, which was exactly why I reached out to you as well, because I was like, I need to ask you some stuff. And thanks again so much for sharing everything you did.
Thank you
That
so
I'm still like going through my notes from that call.
much.
But I would love to be back anytime. Thank you so much. Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much.